Alright, so our 2 Aussie peppers are out of the oven from being in the oven overnight. We've got the pods mounted nicely, 4 layers of cloth, got a full layer of lamination over that. Still a bit rough, so we're going to be rough sanding this nice and smooth, as smooth as we can get it, and then we're going to apply the first filler coat to the hull, and I'm going to demonstrate a drip skirt for those of you who don't know what a drip skirt is. So, this will be a quick one today. Saturday morning, we want to get out there and have some fun. Sand it out again. Just wanted to show you here that you can't afford to skimp on your sandpaper. It clogs up very easily. This is a 40 grit paper and you can see how it clogs up, and that's just the way it is when you're working with the resin that isn't wax impregnated. And you just got to be sure that you have enough of these. Don't try and skimp, because you'll actually just almost start melting the resin. You've got to be cutting the resin away, otherwise you're going to cause chaos for yourself. So make sure you've got a good batch of heavy grit sandpaper when you're doing this. Okay, so on closer inspection, we've got this all nice and smoothed out, smooth as can be. The lap at the back here is nice and smooth. Surface ready to, you can see the cloth pattern. That's all going to be filled in now when we put the filler coat on. Any of these little irregularities over here, they all get filled in with the filler coat. This will be prepping for now. The pepper's also nicely sorted. Nice clean. Just to reiterate, you see the fold that we have at the back here. When we put on the full lamination, that fold gives us 2 layers. Underneath that we had a patch, if you recall, in part 4, and below that we have 3 layers of cloth. So we've got 6 layers effectively of cloth in this area over here, which is really needed for the rudder post to be seriously strong. We've got 4 layers of cloth over our pod. The layers taper out, so that's 1, 2, 3 layers. Underneath that we've got 2 layers of the board, and inside the housing we have another layer, so that's 6 layers of cloth. We'll have reinforcing basically the housing area, and we'll hollow that out, giving us good strong structure. Our pod actually reaches across our housing, leaving about 1 inch on either side, so that almost acts as a type of an I-beam to the housing, which is really cool for strength. And then up front here we have this 3rd layer of cloth, because this is going to be an impact area for sure. In the surf, doing 30 k's an hour, sometimes with these little boards, hitting a head of kelp or some debris in the ocean takes a lot of impact in this area. So we've got a 3rd layer here, giving us 3 layers up front, and then as we discussed before, the nose lamination with the wraps and folds, etc. It's just nice and strong. Notice at no time do I actually sand with the machine at all on the rails over here. This is where our board's actual strength is. My sanding is really only just to get the surface flat, but the rails are left to be hand sanded later to these boards, especially with them not having a stringer in place. We've got the high density foam, and we need to be sure that the rail wrap is seriously strong to be able to endure the strength required for these boards. So let's get the drip skirt taped up around the profile of the board, and then we can apply our filler coat. Alright, this time round when I apply the filler coat, I don't want the resin to be flowing over to this side over here. I don't want to have the extra work of dripping resin. So what we're going to do is we're going to tape a drip skirt. It's going to be about 1 inch of tape all around the edge of the board, which will allow the resin to drip off onto the surface here and not wrap around the rail. Right, so this is the tapes that I use. The reason I use this blue tape is that it doesn't leave a residue behind when the resin is curing. With the masking tape that I have, what happens is when we have the exotherm, the heat from the resin on here, it actually separates the application glue of the masking tape and leaves a residue behind, which you don't want in the process of making a board, because there could be contamination. Excuse me. So I first apply this blue tape. This is an AirTech product, it doesn't leave the residue behind, and then I tape over it. But some of you may be able to get hold of a Scotch tape, masking tape that doesn't leave a residue behind. I just haven't been able to find it yet. Put your line just on the radius of your rail, the middle line of the rail. Leave myself a little feeder here I use just to pull the tape off as it kicks. As well down to the rail. Alright, so this is our skirt here. You can see with a healthy overlap. So any resin that runs down will drip straight down onto the surface. This over here is my little pull cord. So once the resin's kicking, you don't want to leave it till it goes hard to remove this tape. But once the resin's tacky, or it's kicked as we call it, you can strip off, so pulling on here as a start, you can strip off the tape that's surrounding the board. So you can nicely all the way around, making sure it's not lapping back onto the board. Pull your tape out nicely. Make sure it's going to drip straight down. Both boards done. Okay, next thing to do is to check the board's level, both in the length and the width. Whenever we're flowing lamination, flow coat, gloss coat, whichever coat, you have to make sure that the boards are absolutely level in the length and the width. Otherwise you're going to get an inconsistent flow, and you might have it shallow in one area, deep in another area. So just by using a small spirit level, checking the length level there, it's good. So, use a little wedge. Okay, we want to maintain our correct rockers that we've established for ourselves. So that's all good. Okay, remembering that the filler coat, top coat, whatever you want to call it, flow coat, this is a sanding resin, has a small percentage of wax in it that rises to the surface as the resin cures, seals it, which allows the resin to cure 100% so that you're able to sand it. If you don't use the wax percentage in it, if you don't buy sanding resin, you're going to have a problem on your hands because your resin is not going to cure and you're not going to be able to get the finish that you want. Got a nice liberal coat, let it flow. Brush it in. After this process is done, easy it is for you. Run out, filling in all the imperfections. Remember the rcSurfers? Looking for weight in the hull. So don't be shy. Here we have the flow coat on the hulls applied to both boards. You can see how nice and smooth it is. Board's been level, it's run out nice and flat to the surfaces. You can see the need for the drip skirt. All that resin would have run around the rail onto the deck and made for a messy job to repair and sand it out. So we'll leave this to cure, let it flash. It'll be about a half an hour and we can come back and remove the skirt and then leave this to cure before we give it a good sand. Love it, love it. Red pepper, green pepper, the Aussie peppers. Awesome colors. Okay, and the result of that drip skirt is a nice clean rail to work with when we're sanding. No resin flowing over to the deck side of the board. See, it's nice and there's a line there. We'll just remove that with a blade. I'll show you how to do that later. Here we have our boards. They can go into the oven just now and cure nicely. So our next step will just be to give it all a good sand, flip it around, and we can start hollowing out the housing. Start putting in the RC bits and pieces.